Hi, my name's Noggy, and it's important we talk about mental health. In this video, we're going to be talking about what depersonalization is, which is the disorder I struggle with. And hopefully you'll learn a lot in this short video, and I'll be using memes because it's the best way to talk about mental health. So depersonalization is a dissociative disorder. And whenever you hear the word dissociative, just think the word disconnected. I guess you could associate it with disconnected. But depersonalization always comes with its buddy disorder, derealization. So they're technically two different things. Depersonalization is when you disconnect from yourself, and derealization is when you disconnect from the world around you. So whenever you hear depersonalization in this video, I'll probably be referring to both, even though it's technically incorrect. And they're often thought of as DPDR, which is depersonalization, derealization. Now, if you haven't heard of any of this, that's fine. I hadn't until a couple of years ago, pretty much right before I got diagnosed with it, so fair enough. But depersonalization symptoms are actually a lot more common than people think, because they're commonly found in people who are struggling with anxiety or depression. But the full-blown disorder is much more rare, which is what I have. So about 7 years ago, when I was at uni, I was really struggling with anxiety and depression, which sucked. And I started having all these somatic or physical symptoms where I'd lose feeling in my body or my vision would be affected. It felt like I was staring through a tunnel or something. And I kind of just assumed these were the normal physical symptoms that happen with depression or anxiety. But when I started to get better from depression and anxiety, these other symptoms kept getting worse. Then in 2017, I had my first kind of full-blown dissociative episode. I woke up one day and I knew something was terribly wrong. I didn't know what, so I hopped in a taxi to my brother's house and I just had a terrible 2 weeks. I was so disconnected from myself, from reality. I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't keep track of the passage of time, and I lost all feeling in my body. All my senses were affected. It was horrible. And probably the best way to describe depersonalization is that it felt like I was in a video game. Like my body was in the video game as a character, and I was controlling my body through like a controller. So I would like input commands to like lift up my arm, but it wasn't me lifting up my own arm. It was the commands I issued. And like for the first time, because of the depersonalization, I'd struggle to walk. Because like I would have to put the command in to move my leg and then the command in to move my arm at the same time. And it was difficult and it felt clumsy and foreign and alien, even though it was my body. Like even right now, like I look at my hands and I recognize that they're my hands intellectually, but they don't feel like my hands. When I look at them, I don't recognize them as part of me, even though I know they are. So it's really scary and yeah, discombobulating. But it just keeps getting worse. And I had another episode about 6 months later, which was worse. This time it took about 8 weeks to recover from it. And since then, I've not kind of had this up and down with episodes. It's just been more general depersonalization. And it's really difficult. Like the number of times I've almost been hit by cars or cyclists because I don't see a car or I don't hear something because I'm so disconnected and zoned out. I like struggle to cook because I accidentally burn myself or cut myself when I'm cutting vegetables. It's so frustrating. Emotionally, I feel so disconnected. I often feel nothing. And it's hard for me to connect with other people. Like, I can't even connect to myself. How am I supposed to connect with someone else? It's so hard to hold a conversation. Like, when playing FIFA, I went from the hardest difficulty to the easiest difficulty. And don't get me wrong, I still thrash my brothers. But it's just so difficult and like overwhelming, and it affects absolutely every part of my life. Now, I'm not saying this to be like super sad or to garner sympathy or anything. It's just true, and it sucks. And if we're going to talk about mental illness, we have to be honest about how difficult it is. But having said that, I'm so disconnected often, I don't even know how much I'm struggling. So if you ask me how I'm doing and I say like 5 out of 10, it's probably a 2 out of 10, and I just don't even realize how bad I am. Now, I'm going to read a passage from what's called the DSM, which is like the diagnostic manual that doctors and clinicians use, because I think it kind of nails a lot of the like struggle that we have and that we're not even aware of. Symptoms of depersonalization or derealization disorder are highly distressing and are associated with major morbidity, which means that it's like other illnesses are with it. The effectively flattened and robotic demeanor that these individuals often demonstrate may appear incongruent with the extreme emotional pain reported by those with the disorder. Impairment is often experienced in both interpersonal and occupational spheres, largely due to the hypo-emotionality with others, subjective difficulty in focusing and retaining information, and a general sense of disconnectedness from life. Like, it affects all of you. I really struggle to do things like read or study when I'm feeling ill because my IQ is effectively halved. I go from being in the top 1% to being significantly intellectually impaired. And it's difficult. And like, I've never met anyone else with a depersonalization disorder, but if you go online to like the message boards with other people who have it, it's also another glimpse into how horrible it is. I mean, look at some of the things, these are the titles. It's not exactly a fun topic. Now, I just want to finish with saying, like, I want to be joyful and I want to be optimistic and I want to be realistic about what life is like. But to be joyful and to be ill well means I have to start by kind of acknowledging how much it sucks to have this disorder. So hopefully me talking about this hasn't kind of been too much of a downer, but it's just been a really realistic portrayal into what it's like having this disorder and what it is. Yeah, I'm going to finish with more memes, so don't worry. They're great. I think they're hilarious, but also often very articulate. And if you've liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Please, if you have any questions, just comment below. I'll answer them. I'm happy to talk about it more. It's tough to, but I think it's worth it. And yeah, and finally, if this is helpful, please share this video because we need to be talking about mental health way more. And that starts by everyone having these really uncomfortable conversations. Thank you.